Hello everyone and welcome to the 2024 Georgia End-of-Year Fungi Report. This report was made possible by Darling Go, who's a park ranger and data scientist. If you find this insightful, do let us know as we aim to incorporate more data-centric reports and projects in order to help the community better make sense of the accumulated ecological data we have here in Georgia. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. As you can see, the database we used to curate the report was none other than iNaturalist.org. And of course, iNaturalist is not just a great database, but it serves as a leading global tool in fungi, animal, and plant identification, serving as a great platform for citizen scientists, local foragers, hikers, or just nature enthusiasts who would like to document their observations, while at the same time being a great platform and a great database for general scientists and specifically data scientists who can take the data and turn into actionable insights to foster greater nature conservation efforts. Now, the report for today focuses on the total fungi observations for the state of Georgia in the year 2024. And in total, we were able to amass a whopping 37,194 total fungi observations for Georgia. That shows high proactivity and high awareness. We love to see it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the overall structure of the report. We first start out with the overall fungi observation trends. Then we get on with the top 10 most observed fungi species. And of course, for the foragers, we have the top 5 edible and the top 5 medicinal mushroom species found in Georgia. And we go on deeper into the seasonal trends for those edible and medicinal fungi. And a pretty cool visualization that we have here is a regional breakdown of the top 5 counties of fungi observations, which is really great and might surprise you. Perhaps your county may be in the top 5, and if not, hopefully it incentivizes you to get outdoors and get to documenting your observations. And last but not least, we have the observation edibility breakdown into the medicinal, edible, and unknown category. I'm super excited to get into this, but first, let's go ahead and take a look at the summary breakdown for the data set from the iNaturalist database. As we discussed before, we had a total of 37,194 fungi observations in the state of Georgia in 2024. And within that subset, we had roughly 2,187 unique fungi species that were observed. And so for those that are into foraging and alternative health, the next two stats may be of some importance, as we have here roughly 19 unique medicinal species of mushrooms were observed last year in 2024, while 26 unique edible species were observed. And overall, this shows high biodiversity and a high volume in just the resources and richness that Georgia has to offer by way of fungi identification and exploration. Let's go ahead and get deeper into the total fungi trends per month, right? And some trends stick out immediately. As you can see here, there are some key points, but we'll touch on that in a bit. What I would like to point out here is that the initial couple months from January to March and from October or from September to December are characterized by lower observation rates. Now, we may be thinking, why is this? A primary influence could be the fact that from January to April and from September to December, the temperature in Georgia is usually cooler, which leads to lower outdoor activities or lower outings in these outdoor activities, which hence influence the rate at which people can get outdoors and document their observations, right? And so it's also by no coincidence that the seasons depicting spring and summer have the highest grossing observations, right? So from April to September, we have the highest grossing observations for fungi here in Georgia. Now, here's what's pretty cool is that in July alone, here's it's really awesome, but we had roughly 6,411 fungi observations in the month of July. That's incredible, right? So it shows high proactivity on part of the citizen scientists, on part of the local foragers and hikers, and general nature enthusiasts that are getting out there and getting these observations documented. And likewise, May comes in a close second with 4,524 fungi observations for that month. Let's go ahead and take a look at the proportion of medicinal, edible, and unknown fungi observations in Georgia last year of 2024. And as you see here, the vast majority, roughly 92.3%, and 34,000, more than 34,000 of the observed mushrooms found in Georgia in 2024 were neither edible nor medicinal, right? So a very small segment of these observations were actually edible and medicinal. 3%, roughly 3.7% for the edible, and roughly 4% for the medicinal species. Now, I do suspect the categories for the edible and medicinal species will increase as the years go on, as the technology for DNA sequencing is becoming more prevalent. This gives us a better and more accurate process of identifying and classifying mushroom species, which will lead us to, hopefully identifying some unclassified mushroom species and adding them to the edible and medicinal category. So as the identification technology improves, ideally we should see these fractional categories increase as well. But notwithstanding the advancement of identification technology, the edible and medicinal categories still have powerhouse mushrooms within them that we should be grateful for, and we'll dive into later on here. So let's go ahead and get into it. And here we have the top 10 most observed fungi in Georgia of 2024. And you have here a lot of broad categories, and this is more so a key insight into the fact that a lot of the mushrooms could not be identified down to the species level. So so by way of iNaturalist, they were defaulted to the highest taxonomy, which is usually the genera or the genus. As we see here, the Amanita mushrooms, depicting the most deadliest and poisonous mushroom species in the world, are quite prevalent here in Georgia, right? They can be found in urban areas, and they can also be found in forestations. Luckily, they're beneficial as they form symbiotic relationships with the plants and roots in the environment. So they play a key ecological role, right? But it's great to see them thriving here. And of course, we have another prevalent genus, which are the brittle gills, characterized by their brittle gill, and bullets and shelf fungi, which are pretty common as well. A key species that I would like to point out is the turkey tail, scientifically known as Trametes versicolor, and it's quite prevalent. It's also medicinal, which is why I would like to take note of this, as it's a saprophytic decomposer. So it's a forest floor decomposer that can be found all year round across Georgia. And, it's good to keep an eye on these, especially on your foraging forays. Now, let's go ahead and get deeper into some details regarding the edible species, like the turkey tails, which are medicinal. But starting out with the edible species here, we have one of my favorite edible mushrooms, which is the lion's mane mushroom, known as Hericium erinaceus or Hericium erinacus. as you see here, we only had around 175 observations last year in comparison to the over 37,000 fungi identifications, right? So to put things in perspective, the lion's mane mushroom is not as common, and we'll get a better look into why that is and the specific season for when it fruits. And coming in close second, but just as delicious, is the pale oyster. And we had roughly 170 or 150 observations last year for that. And then third, we have the red chanterelle, the black staining polypore for fourth, and the witch's butter. Now, all these mushrooms are quite good, but I would say the lion's mane mushroom and the pale oyster are definitely a forager's favorite. And so let's go ahead and move on to the top 5 medicinal species found in Georgia in 2024. We have here the turkey tail coming in first by a long stretch. And why is that, you may ask? Well, as we discussed earlier, the turkey tail is a saprophytic mushroom, which means it's a decomposer. And so whether it's the summer, spring, fall, or winter, it can be found on the forest floor, just decomposing the wood and returning the nutrients back to a viable substrate for new growth. So all around, it's a great mushroom, and it's medicinal as well. It's known to help modulate and modulate our immune system and help us fight against illness and disease. So a powerhouse mushroom that is prevalent and thriving here in Georgia. And second, we have the golden reishi, which is also quite famous as well, if not one of the most famous mushrooms out of all these categories. But it also helps in modulating our immune system, and it helps in relieving anxiety and stress, while also helping us get deeper sleep and modulating our circadian rhythm, right? So a powerhouse mushroom, all these mushrooms can be considered powerhouses, but really, the more we learn about these things, the more fascinating we get, because we see their benefits just ever increasing. And likewise, we have the lion's mane mushroom here. And you may be thinking to yourself, we just saw that. Now, the lion's mane mushroom, yes, was first on the edible species list, but it's also medicinal. It's known to help optimize our cognitive performance, right? So it's not just good for our brains, but it's also a delicacy. So all around, a really good mushroom as well. And then fourth, we have the split-gill mushroom, and fifth, we have the pale oyster. Now, getting on to the seasonal trends, we can see the breakdown of when specifically are these mushrooms observed. Specifically, the lion's mane mushroom we can see here is fruiting from September to December. So for those who are, planning out their next foraging guide, keep this a secret, but yeah, there you go. It is from September to December. Usually the winter months, the cooler temperatures, the lion's mane does well. Of course, this may be general knowledge for most foragers or for advanced foragers, but it's really great seeing this explicitly depicted here from all the data we were able to accumulate, which, by no means should we not look at these other categories of mushrooms here. For instance, take a look at the pale oyster. We can see here its fruiting time frame peaks from roughly June to December, right? And then for the black staining polypore, we have April to October. So some key insights that we can draw from this. And of course, I'll be using this as well to plan out my foraging forays for this year. And feel free to as well too, for yourself. And we have here the top 5 medicinal species trend. And as you see here, the turkey tail is just so prevalent, and we see it all throughout, right? But more specifically, let's take a look at something interesting, which would be the golden reishi, which has its peak fruiting time from roughly May until September. So, from spring to summer, and also, as we get into fall as well too. So the golden reishi has a shorter time frame from the turkey tail, but just a little bit, right? And something else like the pale oyster here, it's also characterized from June to December. So some pretty cool insights. And of course, if you were planning out your forays, feel free to definitely use this as well. Now let's, get into a really cool visualization here that depicts the top 5 counties for fungi observations. And here's what's pretty surprising. But DeKalb County had over 5,000 fungi observations in 2024. This is incredible, right? Showing high proactivity and high community engagement. Coming in second, we have Fulton County. Third, Gwinnett County. Cobb, we have as fourth, and Clark County as fifth. So really awesome. A key trend that I can point out here is that DeKalb County, Fulton County, Gwinnett, and Cobb County all surround the Atlanta metro area. So, this may get us into some more key questions. Sort of, well, what's causing this? Is it due to the ability for these individuals to get on these platforms like iNaturalist, or their ability to get outdoors and get more into fungi observations? But as we dig deeper into the data, we should be able to get way deeper insights that can foster greater growth and greater understanding for the years ahead. So lastly, we have here Clark, which is closer towards the Athens area, which is pretty interesting, as that's kind of the standout from these locations that are kind of grouped together as well. So interesting visualization. Now, if you did fall within these top 5 counties, congratulations. You've done great. And if you didn't, I hope this incentivizes you to get outdoors and get to documenting your observations. And last but not least, let's go ahead and take a look at the overall hotspots of the edible, medicinal, and unknown categories, which were neither edible nor medicinal, right? So as you can see here, from the over 37,000 fungi observations for 2024, a vast majority of them surrounded the Atlanta metro area, while we had another large cluster around the North Georgia area. And of course, you can always access this report through the Hikes of Georgia website at hikesofgeorgia.com, and you can access the 2024 Georgia End-of-Year Fungi Report. But this map is also modular, which means that, we can zoom in and really get granular and pinpoint specific locations. So maybe you'd like to find, the area or the park closest to you and see what sort of fungi were found there. So for instance, here at Collie Creek Park, we have here quite a few unknown identifications with one medicinal identification. Pretty interesting. Right, so feel free to explore the map, explore the area and see what you can find. Let's see if we can spot another park and see what is going on there. Looks like there's more of a baseball field, but some fungi were observed there. Quite cool, right? So awesome. Yeah, feel free to mess around with that. I had some fun with that as well. But this brings us to the end of our 2024 Georgia Fungi Report. I hope you got some insights out of this. Looking at 2026, we should be making some improvements as far as more detailed reports and breakdowns as far as demographics. So I'm super excited to bring you more updates. And if you got insights out of this, of course, feel free to share, and highly encourage that, you share what comment, or you share your comment of what you appreciated most. Really means a lot, and I hope you have a good one, and much love.